The night had a strange electric heaviness to it, the kind that warns you something is about to change your life forever. The sky over rural Tennessee hung low in thick gray clouds as 26-year-old Ethan Miles, a poor mechanic with grease still under his fingernails, drove his beat-up old Chevy down the long, empty stretch of Highway 41. He had just finished another exhausting shift at the small auto shop where he worked, and his back ached from bending under engines that were older than he was. Money was tight, bills were overdue, and the threat of losing the tiny apartment he shared with his younger brother loomed over him like a storm that refused to pass. But Ethan kept driving, gripping the steering wheel with the stubborn hope that tomorrow might be better than today. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of good people doing the right thing, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world and keeps stories like this alive. Ethan's headlights cut through the darkness until he spotted something unusual up ahead, hazard lights blinking weakly on the shoulder of the highway. As he approached, he saw a sleek black SUV stopped at an angle, front tire torn open like it had been sliced. The driver's door was slightly open, and a figure stood beside it, hugging her arms against the cold wind sweeping across the asphalt. Most people sped past stranded cars without a second glance. Ethan knew that. But his mama had raised him differently. She used to tell him, "Son, when God places someone in your path, you don't ignore them. You help them, even when you're hurting." Her voice echoed in his mind as he slowed down and pulled over. The woman standing near the SUV looked to be in her mid-40s, well-dressed, with an air of grace even in distress. Her hair whipped around in the wind as she tried to call someone, but her phone kept flashing, no signal. Ethan stepped out, shivering as the cold bit through his thin hoodie. He approached cautiously, not wanting to startle her, and she turned with wide, worried eyes. Her name was Rebecca Collins. Though he didn't know that yet, he didn't know anything about her. To him, she was just someone who needed help. Ethan offered a gentle nod and asked if she was okay. Her relief was visible, melting some of the tension in her shoulders. She explained that she had hit debris in the road, blowing a tire, and didn't know how to change it. She was heading to a nearby city for an early morning court hearing and couldn't afford to be late. Ethan knelt beside the damaged tire, ignoring the cold seeping into his jeans, and got to work. The job would have taken someone else 20 minutes, but Ethan worked fast and precise using the emergency tools from her trunk and his own worn-out wrench set he always kept in the Chevy. When he finished, Rebecca thanked him again and again, insisting on paying him something. But Ethan shook his head. He didn't help people for money, and the truth was, accepting it felt wrong. She was a stranger, alone on the highway. He didn't want her to feel like she owed him anything. He simply wished her a safe trip and walked back to his truck, unaware that their paths would cross again in the most unbelievable way. What Ethan also didn't know was that he would soon be standing in a courtroom facing charges for something he didn't do. The next morning, everything in his world went sideways. When he arrived at the auto shop, 2 police officers were waiting for him. A catalytic converter theft had taken place near his neighborhood, an epidemic in the area, and someone claimed they saw a man in a hoodie matching Ethan's walking near the scene. The officers searched his locker and found a converter inside. Ethan's heart plummeted. He had never stolen a thing in his life. The part wasn't his. He realized instantly that it must have been planted. His younger brother Kyle had fallen in with the wrong crowd months earlier. Ethan had been trying to help him straighten out, but sometimes trouble sticks to the people closest to you. Ethan pleaded his innocence, explaining everything he could, but the officers still cuffed him, and soon he was booked, processed, and informed he'd be facing a judge. His court date was set for the end of the week. There were no words to describe the sinking dread that consumed him. He couldn't afford a proper attorney, so he was assigned a public defender buried under a mountain of cases. His boss at the shop reluctantly put him on unpaid leave until things were cleared up. Rent was already late, and Kyle avoided looking him in the eye for days, guilt shadowing every word he stammered. By the time Ethan walked into the courtroom, he felt like his life was unraveling thread by thread. He tried to steady his breathing as he took a seat beside his attorney. He glanced at the bench, waiting to see which judge would oversee the case. Then she walked in. Ethan's eyes widened and his heart dropped into his stomach. It was her, The woman from the highway, Judge Rebecca Collins. Her presence commanded respect. She wore the black robe with dignity, and her eyes were sharp yet compassionate. She didn't notice him at first. She simply opened the case file on her desk. When she finally looked up, her gaze froze. Recognition flickered in her expression, so subtle that no one else in the room seemed to notice. But Ethan felt the air shift. She knew who he was. Rebecca took a slow breath, steadying herself before speaking. She asked the prosecution to present its evidence. Ethan sat stiffly, watching her, unsure if her recognition would help or hurt him. He didn't expect favoritism. He didn't want any. He only hoped she remembered the man who had knelt in the freezing wind to help a stranger without asking for anything in return. As the hearing progressed, something remarkable happened. Rebecca listened closely, deeper than most judges would, probing inconsistencies in the prosecution's case. She questioned the reliability of the eyewitness statement, noting that the lighting conditions were poor and the description was vague. When the prosecutor displayed the converter found in Ethan's locker, she asked how chain of custody had been handled and whether fingerprints had been taken. They hadn't. This alone raised her eyebrows. Ethan's public defender looked shocked at how thoroughly she was examining the details. It was unusual for a judge to dig so deeply during such a preliminary stage, but Rebecca wasn't trying to help him unfairly. She was trying to get to the truth, and the truth mattered deeply to her, especially now that she had personally witnessed Ethan's character. The turning point came when Ethan's brother Kyle unexpectedly walked into the courtroom. With trembling hands and tears streaming down his face, he confessed in front of everyone that he had been involved with a group stealing converters. He had panicked after a recent job and hid one in Ethan's locker, terrified of being caught. He said he never meant for Ethan to be blamed, but things spiraled out of control. The courtroom murmured as his confession hung in the air. Rebecca listened, her expression softening with the weight of understanding. She finally looked at Ethan, not as a defendant, but as the same man who had stopped to help her on a cold highway night. She delivered her decision clearly and calmly. All charges against Ethan Miles were dismissed due to insufficient evidence and new testimony. She urged prosecutors to redirect their investigation appropriately. In that moment, Ethan felt the crushing weight he had been carrying lift off his chest. His breath came unsteady, almost disbelieving, as if he had forgotten how to breathe freely. When the courtroom cleared and Rebecca stepped down from the bench, she approached him privately, thanking him again for helping her on the highway and telling him she had never forgotten his kindness. Ethan didn't know what to say. He simply nodded with quiet gratitude. Months passed, and Ethan slowly rebuilt his life. The auto shop gave him his job back, this time with a small raise. Kyle started attending counseling and working part-time, determined to change his life for the better. And one afternoon, Ethan received a note in the mail. It was from Judge Collins, thanking him once again and encouraging him never to lose the goodness she had seen in him. Ethan pinned the note to the wall above his tiny kitchen table, a reminder that kindness does not disappear into the air. It circles back when you least expect it. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep these powerful, emotional stories alive. Before we end, I have a special request. Comment below with "I believe in kindness" if this story moved you.